Do you love the look of a vintage crochet hat? Then you've come to the right place. I'm Little John Yarns, and today we're going to make this crochet vintage Cloche hat created using the Mobius twist, which gives the hat that unique crochet look. Let's hop into the pattern breakdown. I'm going to break this pattern into 3 simple sections so it's easy to follow. We're going to start by creating the base. Next, we're going to move on to working on the sides and the brim. And lastly, we're going to work on the crown to close off the hat. We'll begin by creating a ring and crocheting on the top and bottom of the original chain. You are essentially crocheting in a figure 8 pattern. This figure 8 is called the Mobius twist. As you build your rows, your twist will become more prominent. The top half will be your sides of the hat, and the bottom section will be the brim and the slope of the hat. Last, we'll work on the crown. We'll stop crocheting in the figure 8 pattern and close off the top of the hat by working in decreasing circular rounds. The material that we'll be using today is Caron 1 pound in the color green and a little bit in the color black. We'll also be using a 6mm crochet hook. To make navigating through the pattern easier, I always provide timestamps for each section of the video. Before we start, make sure you have yourself a stitch marker. It doesn't matter exactly what you use. The stitch marker is key to this pattern. The one I'll be using is by Cheryl's Creation. I'll leave all her information down in the description box below. In my pattern, I begin with black, but since black is very difficult to see, I'll be using green for this part of the tutorial. We're going to begin by chaining a total of 60 chains loosely. This 60 chains should fit loosely around the diameter of your head, the circumference of your head. So test it out. Like I said, you should have maybe a thumb space in between your forehead and the outside of your chain. So once you have your 60 chains that are chained loosely, we are going to slip stitch to join into the very first chain stitch to form a ring. So slip stitch to join. Like I said, in the pattern that you see in the picture at the beginning of the video, I'm using black yarn. All right, so now we're going to chain 1, and we are going to single crochet into the very same stitch. And we're going to single crochet in each chain around. So pause your video here, continue placing 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, and at the end you should have a total of 60 single crochets. Okay, we've made it back around, and please double check that you have exactly 60 stitches. Make sure your work is completely straightened out. There are no twists in your work. Typically, when you make it to the end of your row, you would slip stitch to join into the very first single crochet, but we are not going to single crochet into the next stitch. We're going to be working on the bottom of your work. So we're just going to take your work right here and twist it to the bottom. Just 1 twist. I'll show you one more time. Right now, my work is completely straightened out. There are no twists in my work. And here is the very top of my work. What we're going to do, we are going to twist your work and work on the bottom of your chain stitches. So find your very first chain, and we are going to single crochet. And on that very first single crochet, get your stitch marker and mark that stitch so we do not forget it. All right, now we're going to continue placing single crochets on that very bottom row. It should be a total of 60. So from here, this is 1, 2, and 3. All right, so pause your video here. Continue placing those 60 single crochets all the way around your work until you make it back to the other side. So pause your video here. We've made it back around, and you should have 60 single crochets if you're counting back from your original stitch marker. You'll notice your work has a slight twist to it. You'll notice 1 twist going through your work, and that is perfectly normal. At this point in my pattern, if you want to follow along to what the picture looks like, this is where I would switch over to black yarn. I would switch from black yarn back over to my green yarn. All right, so now we're going to remove this stitch marker. And we're going to begin placing double crochets into the very next stitch. Right here. So we're not going to slip stitch to join. We're just continue to work in the round. So yarn over and place a double crochet on that very first single crochet. Like so. And that very first double crochet will be the beginning of our row. So every time we make it to this stitch marker, we're just going to move it up a row because this is now the beginning of the row. The row will have a total of 120 stitches. We're going to be working in a figure 8. So continue placing one double crochet in each stitch all the way around until you make it back to the stitch marker. All right, so pause your video here and I'll meet you back at the other stitch marker. So far, your hat should look like a headband with one twist. Okay, we've made it back around to the very beginning of the row and we're going to remove this stitch marker. You'll notice mine is different. I just switched over back to my regular pattern. We're still in the same place. So remove that first stitch marker. And for this next stitch, we are going to do a front post double crochet. That's what we're going to be doing for the rest of the pattern. So yarn over, and for that very first double crochet, go behind your double crochet and push it forward and complete your double crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And we're going to front post double crochet into each stitch all the way around. Whoops, don't forget to put in your stitch marker to mark that very first stitch. Okay, I'm going to show you a front post double crochet again. Yarn over, go behind that post, push it forward, and complete your double crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. I'll show you one more time. Yarn over, go behind that double crochet, push it forward at the post, and complete your double crochet. All right, pause your video here. Continue placing one front post double crochet in each stitch around until you make it to this stitch marker. So I'll meet you there. Okay, we've made it back around and you should notice you'll still have that one singular twist going through your work, and that is completely normal. By doing this twist and the front post double crochets, you'll notice you'll be able to see the texture of the front of your work and the back of your work at the very same time, which leads to a pretty awesome look. All right, for your next row, we're just going to repeat the previous row all over again by placing one front post double crochet into that very next stitch. And remember, don't forget to remove your stitch marker. Let me do that. It's stuck on my work. Don't forget to remove your stitch marker and move it on to the very next row so you know exactly where your row ends and begins. So pause your video here. Continue placing one front post double crochet stitch in each stitch all the way around. We're going to do that for several rows. I'll tell you how many rows that we'll be doing. Well, I'll leave that number down at the bottom of the screen right here. So pause your video here and complete those additional rows of front post double crochets. If you're following my color scheme, the 7th row is done in black. Okay, we just finished our 7th row, and now I'm going to help you put your hat into position. This is where a lot of people get stuck. All right, here's your working yarn. We're going to bring that twist all the way to the front so it'll have an X right here. To do that, I place my hand within the hat and flatten out the back until the back of my work is completely flat and that X is worked up to the front. It takes a second. Keep adjusting your hat until that X is worked up to the top. There we go. Like I said, the back half will be flat. Now we have our working position. And here is your working yarn. What we're going to do now, we are going to count 60 stitches back from your working yarn and place a stitch marker. So starting this way, count 60 stitches back. And when you get to your 60 stitches back, you're going to place a stitch marker right there. All right, now that we have our hat in position, I'm going to zoom in on her work so you'll be easier able to see what's going on. Okay, if you're following along to my color pattern, I just switched back to the color green. All right, we're in that X position that I told you about previously. And here's your working yarn. And find that 60 stitch marker right here. See, we went all the way around this way. And the 60th stitch marker is right here. We are going to slip stitch to join. We're no longer going to be working in a figure 8. So slip stitch to join on that 60th stitch. All right, make sure you can remove your stitch marker. And we're going to chain 1. See, now our X is now created. We're no longer working in a figure 8. We're just going to continuously work in this new circle right here, over and over until we reduce the top of your hat. So for your very first stitch, we are going to front post double crochet into the next 10 stitches. So front post double crochet into that very same one, that very first one here. One. We're going to continue working on the top. So the next, not going down this slope like before, we're working at the top. This is your second front post double crochet. And remember, we're continuing working on the top. I'm working over my yarn as I crochet, so I don't have to weave in my ends later. All right, you can pause your video here. Continue placing those 10 front post double crochets into those next stitches. Okay, we just completed those 10 front post double crochets. And I forgot to mention, make sure you mark your very first front post double crochet with a stitch marker so you can find your way back on the other side. So after you do those 10, we're just going to do a front post double crochet 2 together. It's extremely simple. So yarn over, go through 2 posts instead of 1, and complete your double crochet as normal. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That's a front post double crochet together. I'll show you the sequence one more time. We're going to front post double crochet into the next 10 stitches. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the end of those 10 stitches. We completed those 10 stitches and we're going to front post double crochet 2 stitches together. To do that, you yarn over, go behind 2 of your posts, 1, 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. You're going to front post double crochet across the next 10, then front post double crochet 2 together until you make it back to the other side where your stitch marker is. So pause your video here and I'll meet you at the other side. We've made it back around. For this previous row, you should have a total of 55 stitches and you would end with a front post double crochet together. For your next row, we're going to slip stitch to join into that very first front post double crochet. Remember, we put a stitch marker on it. So we'll remove that stitch marker. And we're going to slip stitch to join into that very first front post double crochet. Chain 1. we're going to front post double crochet into the next 9 stitches. So front post double crochet, that's 1. Next stitch, 2. Pause your video here and complete those 9 stitches. Okay, we completed those 9 stitches. And I forgot, if you need to, you can place that stitch marker into that very first front post double crochet. All right, on your next stitch, we are going to front post double crochet 2 together. So remember, you go through 1, 2 stitches, push them forward, and complete your front post 2 double crochets together. All right, so that is going to be our pattern sequence all the way around. So pause your video here. We're going to, let me tell you the sequence. Front post double crochet into the next 9, then front post double crochet 2 stitches together all the way around. So pause your video here and I'll meet you back at the other side. Okay, we made it back around and you can remove your stitch marker. You won't need to use this anymore because you can probably understand that we're working completely in a circle. At the end of this row, you should have a total of 50 stitches. So let's slip stitch to join into that very first front post double crochet and chain 1. The pattern sequence for this row will be front post double crochet into the next 8 stitches, followed by 2 front post double crochets together. So let's front post double crochet into the next 8 stitches. That was 1, 2. Well, you can pause your video here and I'll meet you at the end of your 8. Okay, we have our 8 stitches and we're going to front post double crochet 2 together. You'll probably notice a pattern when you front post double crochet together. You'll notice this front post and the second front post is connected to the previous row's front post double crochets together. If that makes sense, it'll start looking like the branches of a tree. So front post double crochet those 2 stitches together. Hope that makes sense and I didn't confuse you. All right, so pause your video here. We're going to repeat that sequence all the way around. Front post double crochet into the next 8, followed by a front post double crochet 2 stitches together. Okay, we've made it back around. At the end of that row, you should have a total of 45 stitches. Now we're going to slip stitch to join and chain 1. For this row, we're going to front post double crochet into the next 3, followed by a front post double crochet together. So we'll work those together. So front post double crochet, that's 1. Front post double crochet, that's 2. Front post double crochet, that's 3. Now we're going to front post double crochet 2 stitches together. Push those stitches forward, front post double crochet. And that is going to be our pattern sequence all the way around. So front post double crochet into the next 3 stitches, followed by a front post double crochet 2 stitches together. Pause your video here and I'll meet you at the other side. Okay, we made it back around. At the end of that row, you should have a total of 36 stitches. So let's slip stitch to join into the top of the very first front post double crochet, chain 1, and we're going to front post double crochet into the next 2 stitches. 1 and 2. Now we're going to front post double crochet 2 stitches together. So yarn over and push those 2 stitches forward and complete your front post double crochet 2 together. So that is going to be our pattern repeat for this row. That's a front post double crochet into the next 2 stitches, 1, 2, and front post double crochet 2 stitches together. All right, pause your video here and I'll meet you at the other side. All right, we made it to the end of that row and you should have a total of 27 stitches. So let's slip stitch to join into that very first front post double crochet. Chain 1. We're going to front post double crochet into 1 stitch, then front post double crochet 2 together. So let me show you. Front post double crochet into 1 stitch, front post double crochet 2 stitches together. One more time. front post double crochet into just one stitch, front post double crochet 2 stitches together. That is going to be our pattern repeat all the way around. So 1 front post double crochet followed by a front post double crochet 2 stitches together. Okay, we've made it back around. As you can see, we're closing off the center of your hat. And you should have a total of 18 stitches for that last row. And you're going to slip stitch to join into the very top of that first front post double crochet. And for this row, we're just going to front post double crochet 2 stitches together all the way around. So yarn over, front post double crochet 2 stitches together. That's 1 front post double crochet 2 stitches together, and you're just going to repeat that. So go through 2 posts. I know it's kind of hard to see. All right, so that's your pattern repeat all the way around. So just front post double crochet 2 of your stitches together, and I'll meet you back at the other side. And if you're having trouble seeing your very first stitch, make sure you use your stitch marker so you know where the beginning of your row is. Okay, for your very last row, to help close off that last hole, we're just going to slip stitch to join. You had a total of 8 stitches left over from the previous row. And all we're going to do now are we are going to front post single crochet all the way around, 2 stitches together. So 1 stitch, 2 stitch, single crochet, yarn over, go through 2 loops, go behind 2 stitches, 1, 2, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. We're going to do that all the way around, and then we're going to fasten off when we're done. When we're done. So I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done doing my single crochets together. I finished my last single crochet, and I'm just going to fasten off my work. And you can just take your hook and pull that little extra strand through the inside of your hat. All right, and now your hat is complete. I'll give you a better view of what you created. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and check out my other crochet hats. Okay guys, I'll see you all on the very next tutorial.